All right, let's get our freak on. Freak 16, time it to fill in the brackets. We've got 16 Republican candidates on the board. And we've got our first matchup here, Jeb Bush versus Bobby Jindal, the 1 seed versus the 16 seed. It's a no-brainer. Jeb Bush in a landslide. There goes a former governor or current governor of Louisiana, former candidate. He'll be the first one out according to my predictions. Now, this is a doozy. This is the matchup everybody's been looking forward to, Carson versus Trump. Now, Trump's got a ton of momentum as we speak, as we're doing these brackets, but I'm not a believer. Ben Carson at least has not called a whole group of people rapists. I'm going to have Ben Carson winning here. The good doctor is going to take a scalpel to the Donald. Down goes the Trump towers. Down goes Trump. Okay, now we go to Rubio versus Santorum. The sweater vest, as I call it, is not going to fly here. Marco Rubio with a lot more momentum. He's going to take out Santorum. That does not sound good. Okay, Cruz versus Fiorina. We know why Fiorina is here, so we can have a symbolic candidate on the Republican side. The Republicans aren't going to actually vote for her. They're going to go for Ted Cruz, who is a tough political fighter and is going to win that easily. Now we go to the other side here, Paul versus Pataki. Rand Paul is going to spank Pataki. Pataki has no chance in that first round matchup. Rand Paul goes up on the board. Then Huckabee versus Kasich is an interesting first round matchup, and you could have a potential upset there. But in the end, I think Huckabee is a more potent force. I think he's going to gather up the religious right vote in a more effective way. Kasich does, even though he's a pretty good governor and is more reasonable than the rest of the field, doesn't really have a base constituency in the Republican primary. I'm going Huckabee there. And understand there's not going to be a lot of upsets here in the beginning because the lower tier here, outside of Kasich, is fairly disastrous. So Walker versus Lindsey Graham there. Lindsey Graham doesn't have any real constituency in the Republican base. I know he's going to have good money from military contractors because he's in favor of every war in the world, but he's going to lose this war to Scott Walker. Scott Walker is going to take that first round matchup. Now, Chris Christie versus Rick Perry. That matchup could also be interesting if Rick Perry wasn't such a spaz. In the end, even with all the scandals, I think Chris Christie beats Rick Perry handily there. So we've got our first round settled there. So let's go back and get to our final four here, okay? So now we got Bush versus Ben Carson. I'm not a big believer in Bush. Oh, I've been saying that a lot. Can Ben Carson take out Jeb Bush? The answer is no. In the end, Ben Carson is not a politician. He's going to say a bunch of things that are going to make no sense. He's going to get ripped on it. The same thing happened to Herman Cain. And Jeb Bush is got the entire establishment behind him. The establishment is not going to lose to a non-politician. Rubio versus Cruz. Oh, the Latino part of the bracket. Everybody's got Rubio up on top here in this contest. He's certainly trending a lot better. They think Cruz is not realistic. Disagree. We got our first upset right here in the brackets. Ted Cruz takes down Marco Rubio. Gets him in a little bit of a headlock. Cruz in that matchup. Now we go to Rand Paul versus Mike Huckabee. Oh, things are getting exciting. Okay, if this was real matchups and they got on the ring or they debated one another, how phenomenal would it be? I'd love to see a Rand Paul versus Mike Huckabee debate. That would be excellent. I think in the real world, Rand Paul outlasts Mike Huckabee. I think there's bounds of reason to all of that religious talk. Yes, it's got a good constituency, but it also has a cap in the Republican field, and certainly it would in the general election. All right, now, Scott Walker versus Chris Christie, another doozy. I'd pay to see that one. Well, a lot of people have Scott Walker going all the way here, but not me. The first dramatic upset, I think Chris Christie takes down Scott Walker. I'm telling you, don't count out Chris Christie. He's got that populist spiel. I'm the average guy. I'll yell at anyone. I'll tell him to shut up. Meanwhile, all of his policy positions are to support Wall Street and the establishment. They know that. If he can get back on his feet, he can do a lot of damage. I've got Chris Christie in the Final Four. Now, next, we'll find out who wins the Final Four. Wow, now we're having fun.